This is FYI, conversations with interesting people about fascinating projects happening in Ohio.
I'm JT Burcham, and welcome to FYI 93.7 The Light, Hope 100.7. You already got to see my first guest. Welcome, Gary Taphorn. Gary is a native of Cincinnati, stumbled into the Right to Life movement. We'll hear some more of those stories in just a little bit. Also, Jenny Schaup. Welcome to Jenny Schaup, who is after healing from her abortion, she was propelled into 25 years of pro-life work, particularly in the Dayton local area with Hope Rising as a development director. She still speaks. She's a sidewalk advocate for life. And today we are talking about the 40 Days for Life. So welcome, Gary and Jenny. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, I had not heard of the 40 Days for Life. I heard ACLU say that 40 Days for Life is the greatest threat to choice because they're so highly effective and organized. So I am pretty interested and intrigued by that. Gary, how did you first get involved?
Well, JT, I was am a retired Army officer, and between my Army career and working as a civilian at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, that took me up to almost age 65, which is actually almost 10 years ago. And when we finally settled down here in the Dayton area, my wife and I realized that we wanted to get involved in something locally to give back to the community. Having been in the military for most of my life, I didn't pay much attention to the local community because we were always moving around. But as you said, I kind of stumbled into the pro-life movement. My wife came home from Mass one day about 12, 14 years ago and said, "Do you know they have an abortion clinic in Kettering, which is 5 miles from our house?" I said, "Absolutely not." So I checked it out. And the next thing I knew, I was volunteering for this or that or the other thing. I've been with 40 Days for Life since our beginning, which was about 2008. And I've also been on the board of directors for Dayton Right to Life. I think of that as a companion organization. So I'm pretty active in the community, and I've also been able to look at statewide issues as well. Unfortunately, anybody who knows our story in Ohio here knows the tragedy of issue 1 of 2 years ago, which basically turned Ohio into a totally pro-abortion state, upending 6 or 7 different laws enacted by our governor and our legislature. So despite all our activity around the state, Ohio is the pro-lifers have got a long road to hoe in front of us, but we are undaunted. And with people like Jenny and others, we expect to regain the high ground and eventually make abortion illegal.
Yeah. We'll get into 40 Days for Life and how folks can get involved in just a moment. But Jenny, how did you first get involved? How much of your story are you willing to share?
Well, I started sharing my story many years ago, and I was really encouraged because one of my pastors reminded me of the verse in Psalms that says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, how he redeemed them from the hand of the enemy." So I have no excuses to keep it myself because the Lord has been gracious to me. He saved my life through the ministry of Hope Rising. And I am an advocate for his image bearers. So I will never stop until he takes me home. So how did I get involved with this? Well, that's a big question. But in a nutshell, I had heard about 40 Days for Life, the organization. It began in inception in 2004, but the first national campaign started in 2007, and now even though many people have not heard about the 40 Days for Life, it is the world's largest pro-life organization, which is mind-boggling. It's an internationally coordinated 40-day campaign, and it aims to end abortion through prayer and fasting, outreach, and peaceful all-day vigils in front of abortion businesses. And they're in 64 countries, 1,700 cities, and over nearly 12,400 local campaigns. And so I've been aware of it, but since I keep in the loop with what's happening in the pro-life world, I happen to always get the emails from 40 Days for Life. And so I'll jump right in. How I got involved with 40 Days for Life is because several weeks ago, I was listening to their webcast about how to defund Planned Parenthood. So as I was listening in, at the time prior to that, I had been asking the Lord to show me my next steps, how he wanted to use me. And lo and behold, at the end of that webcast, Sean Carney, who's the president and CEO of 40 Days for Life, was talking about one of the volunteer prayer vigil people. Her name is Paula, how she was standing outside of a clinic praying, and this woman stopped her car and frantically got out of the car and started yelling at her and berating her and telling her, how dare you judge these women? You don't know what it's like. You've never walked in their shoes. How dare you be out here? You have no idea what it's like. Planned Parenthood saved my life. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have a career. I wouldn't have been able to have a job, and I wouldn't have been able to live the life that I've lived. And so she said, how dare you? And so Paula just looked at her and asked her, how did Planned Parenthood save your life? She goes, I was a teenager and I was raped, and my parents forced me to get an abortion. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been able to have the life that I've had. I wouldn't have been able to have the career that I have. I wouldn't have been able to have anything. They saved my life. And so Paula asked her, or told her, it's like, Planned Parenthood didn't save your life. They killed your baby. And this woman looked at her and scoffed and said, how dare you? And left. But then a short time later, she came back. But this time, Paula describes her as looking kind of down and dejected and kind of humbled. And she said, where were you? Where were you when I needed you? My parents forced me. No woman wants to be here. Nobody wants this. But I've seen you. I've driven by time after time. I see you here all the time. Why weren't you there for me when I needed you? It seemed like when I went here, nobody was there for me. Like nobody cared about me. Where were you? So that struck me. It's like the Lord saying, okay, is it loud and clear that's your next step? Because I was that same girl back in 1986. Things were a little bit different at that time. There weren't protesters. I mean, no, there were protesters back then, but now we have peaceful prayer vigils. And so the Lord blatantly called me to be there for them.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Gary, an event is coming up, 40 Days for Life. How do folks get involved? Talk about the event. How can folks get involved this year?
Sure. Well, JT, 40 days is exactly what it says it is. It's twice a year, spring and fall. The 40 Days campaign kind of ratchets itself up into a full-blown prayer vigil. The rest of the year, we hope that people will join us on an unofficial basis in front of abortion clinics. But the spring and the fall campaigns each year are the bread and butter of 40 Days for Life. The spring campaign each year always begins on a Wednesday, specifically Ash Wednesday, which this year is the 5th of March, Wednesday, the 5th of March, and it always ends on Palm Sunday, which this year is the 13th of April. Now, in addition to the time in front of the clinics during those 40 days, which is basically a 12-hour day as far as we're concerned. We want people to be there, be on the sidewalk, pray and witness from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there's a way people can actually sign up to take those hours online and even get a reminder about them. But in addition to the 40 days presence on the sidewalk, we typically have here in Dayton an opening rally and a closing rally. Now, the opening rally, and these rallies, by the way, are always on Sundays. So this year, it is the opening rally is on Sunday, March the 2nd, which will be 3 days officially before we begin the campaign at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And as a matter of fact, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker for that rally, who is with us now, Jenny Schaub. She will be our opening guest speaker. And then 40 days later, when we get, actually in this case, it's Sunday, April 6th, not the 13th, due to the availability of speakers. We have a mother-daughter team from out of state, Suzanne and Rachel Guy, who will be our closing speakers. So the information on all this can be found on our website, which is 40 Days for Life Dayton. Just go to Google or any search engine, type in 40 Days for Life Dayton, and this will be the first place that you pop up. Not only can you see the schedule, but that's also where you can sign to participate by taking some hours. I also want to mention the location, because if you're not familiar with the Dayton area, you may not know this, but in the city of Kettering, the address is 1401 East Stroop Road, 1401 East Stroop Road. That's been the location of Martin Haskell's abortion clinic for 30 some odd years. Haskell was an extremely notorious abortionist who focused on late-term abortions. And finally, praise God, he decided to cash in his chips and retire. That's the good news. The bad news on that is that he has basically sold his business to Planned Parenthood. So now Ohio is really dominated by Planned Parenthood in both Cincinnati and Dayton, as well as Cincinnati and as well as Columbus and Cleveland. So it's a Planned Parenthood state right now, and we definitely want to have a good turnout and a good presence during this coming 40 days campaign to let Planned Parenthood know we mean business too.
Excellent. Thank you, Gary. All right, 1 minute left. Jenny, give that heartfelt, why should folks come out? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go.
Go ahead. Why should
so there are a lot of great reasons to be a part of this. And one thing I wanted to share also is that 39 years ago, when I was headed to the abortion clinic, I had mentioned that girl was me 39 years ago. And I was wondering if there would be protesters there. And I was hoping there would be somebody there to help me change my mind, because, right now, this is what I'm going to do. That's what the Lord said. But who wouldn't want to be a part of this? I mean, the fact that Planned Parenthood or the ACLU said that about Planned Parenthood is amazing. And back in 1982, I believe there were like 50 abortion clinics in Ohio, and now there are only 3. So that's good reason to be a part of this. But there's the 40 Days for Life is a wonderful campaign. Since they started, over 160 of the abortion facilities where they held local campaigns have closed. And they had a record number of 268 abortion workers quit because of the campaigns. And Abby Johnson was the 26th abortion worker to leave. But the best thing about it is the abortion workers who have left Planned Parenthood have said that whenever people were outside praying, that the no-show rate for abortions was 75%. That's something to get excited about.
That's amazing. Yep. One more time, that website for folks to get involved, Gary, where can they go?
40daysforlife.com/Dayton.
Thank you, Gary and Jenny. Appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you. God bless.
JT.